Welcome everyone to this Lessons from the Field. As you know, is a interview series that we do with a diverse array of guests who all have a common thread, and that's a passion for pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. And today we're very fortunate to be featuring Jill Collins, who is a 2006 PhD from UIC in medicinal chemistry. And she is now the CEO and Chief Strategy Officer for Audacity Health. As with our other guests, I'll be asking Dr. Collins a number of questions to elucidate her experiences and insight. And I know that will be very beneficial to those listening, our students, alumni, and friends. So I guess, Jill, we go ahead and get started with the first question, which is just to walk us through briefly your career from the time you left UIC up until now.
So from the time I left UIC, I can even take a step back where I started with my bachelor's in chemistry from University of Dayton in Ohio. I went to UIC, had a wonderful experience. I received my PhD in medicinal chemistry. And much like most of the students, when they complete that program, they look at continuing in that academic track. I went out to San Diego and interviewed to do postdoc, and I ended up joining the Sanford Burnham Institute. So I joined a lab for neuroscience and stem cells. And so I began doing my research there. I was collaborating with a lot of the local prestigious research institutes like Scripps Research. I had a grant from UCSD. So I was definitely following that traditional trajectory. At that point is when I realized I really love science, but I didn't necessarily love being in the lab. And so at that point, I encountered an opportunity that allowed for me to transition from in the lab over to the business side of biotech. Being in San Diego, there's a plethora of biotech companies, and I was able to pursue an opportunity to join a local biotech company in a role for business development. So I was actually doing technology evaluation for in-licensing, and then I subtly shifted over to marketing. And that's where I really started that biotech marketing career and the love of that. And I joined a couple other different biotech companies serving marketing. And then I was recruited into Audacity as an agency that needed that scientific expertise to understand their clients. And so I had never fathomed joining an agency. I was like, no, I'm a scientist. I got my PhD. This isn't really what I expected. But I got to Audacity and absolutely fell in love with it. It's really understanding the science, communicating the science, helping establish and position the value of these brands so that you can enable commercial success. So here we are, a couple different steps, and now I am leading the agency and having a wonderful time working with all these exciting brands.
Wow, that's fantastic. I imagine that in that field, it must be often that the science part of things must be the biggest hurdle at times. Your background, I'm sure others that work there are just phenomenal in that, how you can translate that and make it real for the client and the patient.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, one of the things that our students often will ask us about is just the details of what you actually do, so they get a better understanding of what is it like on a day-to-day basis. What are you actually doing? Could you tell us a little bit about that too?
Sure. Well, in my position as CEO, obviously, I'm tasked with making sure the team is performing and has what they need to succeed. I connect often with all my team leads and make sure that I can help resolve any challenges or equip them for success. So I do a lot of check-ins with them. At our company, we do have a team that does market research. We have a team that does scientific brand strategy. We have our creative team, our digital and media and marketing team. So I interact with them to make sure that they have everything they need to succeed. And then I'm also in charge of bringing in new business. So in my role, I meet with new prospective clients. I hear what their needs are, hear what they're trying to do, and then I devise a solution and a strategy that I put forth in a proposal, and I pitch ideas, and then I am able to bring on new clients, new projects. So I'm doing multiple proposals a week. But then as the chief strategy officer, I am guiding our strategists. So our strategists serve that authoritative role for our clients to help set forth that winning brand strategy. So helping understand the industry dynamics and the competitive landscape and knowing how to position them for success. So I am often guiding them, helping them with challenges. And I also participate in client workshops. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I'm actually in the middle of a client workshop right now. So they used to be all day when they were in person. Now virtually they're about 3 or 4 hours. And we run through a series of exercises where we typically guide the C-suite executive leaders on the client side to help shape that brand platform for them. So yes, I'm actually in the middle of one. I stepped out momentarily to do this, and then I'll return.
It sounds really fun. I mean, the intersection between science and creativity, often we, are stuck in one or the other. It must be nice to be able to use both sides of your brain. I mean, as you meet with these clients, I'm sure that you're learning about some of the cutting edge or most recent advances in healthcare and pharmacy. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what excites you about those advances in the field of pharmaceutical sciences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a unique perspective. A company like ours sits at that intersection where we get to see across the industry landscape. So we see the different new technologies coming to market, the new products that are emerging in healthcare. And so it's exciting to see what are the trends happening. So there was this major wave of precision oncology several years ago where everybody was using genomics to profile tumors so they could correlate that to a targeted therapy and personalized medicine. Then there was a wave of immunotherapy and how do you predict and monitor response. And then there was this huge drive to do so in a less invasive way. So liquid biopsies. And then they also have this drive of early detection of cancer through a blood sample. And then how do we monitor cancer through a blood sample? So right now we have a tremendous number of clients really racing after that MRD cancer monitoring testing, but we get to see how everyone's chasing those same new goals and how they're approaching it with a slightly different strategy. We also had the privilege of helping launch one of the first commercially available gene editing platforms. And so we get to really touch a lot of cool things coming to market and enabling science and advancements in human health. And then our role in that is that we get to help position their brand for success. So we understand those technical details and how it will fit, how it will win, how to articulate the value to the various stakeholders and set them up for success commercially so that they could have that maximal impact on advancing human health.
Wow, you have a real lens on the kind of future of healthcare when you're meeting with these people. That must be exciting. So maybe you could parlay that into advice for students who may be just entering the market or close to, or maybe they're still in training, but what advice would you have for students knowing, kind of what's coming in the near future?
Sure. So as a student, you may not know what you want to do long term, but the scientific education, the research experience that you're acquiring now will be invaluable if you wish to remain in biotech. So even if you leave the lab, the business side of biotech has a desire to have that deep technical and scientific expertise. And so it's really a rarity and it's a hard combination to find. I know personally, because we're always trying to source that individual that's adept at both business and science. And it's a powerful combination that not a lot of individuals have. So it makes you a hot commodity. And I think that if you have an interest in staying in biotech, that foundational scientific and research experience will be instrumental, regardless if you stay in the lab. So take advantage of that now, be exposed to as many opportunities, different techniques and different types of projects, and that will do you well in whatever position you hold.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I'm sure that'll be great advice for the students that are just starting out. But another thing that you've done that, others maybe haven't as much, but as a CEO, you're leader of company, you're managing people. What advice do you have for folks that might be interested in that? And are there skills that you recommend getting or that you picked up along the way, or maybe that you wish you would have picked up that would have prepared you for what you're doing now?
Yeah, and I've read a ton of different leadership books. There's a ton of them out there that'll give you a lot of great advice. But one of the things that I wish I maybe would have implemented or understood earlier is invest in your people. As a leader, you have people that depend on you, and they're not just there to do your job, but they're there so that you can develop them to be stronger at what they do. So invest in your people, teach them, inspire them, help them succeed. Because if you take the time to train your team members, help develop them, it'll not only help them personally, It'll strengthen your team, strengthen your company. And I think that it's often a leader will say, well, this needs to get done, and I'm just going to do it myself, or assign it to someone that can do it. But you're missing an opportunity to grow and train that individual, which will pay off in gold later if you just take that time and invest it in the beginning.
Yeah, that's so true. So for folks out there who might be interested in a career like yours, a little bit non-traditional perhaps in your interest and movement towards the business side of things, and also with a smaller company and kind of entrepreneurial, what advice might you have for those folks?
Yeah, so I obviously diverged from that traditional research route. I wanted to stay in science, but not in the lab. And so if you have an interest in following a similar path, then networking is going to be key, because you have to have a network and find an opportunity that allows you to transition. You are professionally trained as a scientist, which means you are not qualified or have the experience on the other side. So you either have to step back into a lower position, or you have to find someone willing to take a chance on you. Someone that sees your potential, is willing to give you that opportunity and to develop you. So I think networking is really how a lot of people find those rare opportunities.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know, well, you've already given us some great advice here, and maybe one last question on work-life balance and or other tips that you have. I know you're a mom who has kids, and you are extremely busy with your job. How do you handle it all, and what advice do you have for folks that might be encountering the same?
Yeah, I think that you have to first understand what happiness means to you, both professionally and personally, so that you can strike that right balance. And I think that often people are driven by societal norms. They want the high paying job, the impressive title, the family of four, the big house, but sometimes that's not what fulfills you. So you need to understand, what does your happiness look like, set a plan and achieve it. And once you get there, most importantly, enjoy it. I think that the other pressure that you see is to continue to drive further, more, do more, just push harder. Whereas sometimes you find that balance and you have that happiness on both levels. So enjoy it and just recognize that, you made it, you've got it, life is good. But I think there's a persistent need to drive. And I think that making sure you get what you need on both personal and professional fronts is important. And it may be different for every person.
Yeah. Wow, what great advice. Really appreciate the time you took, Dr. Collins, to spend with us. Yeah, I know that the folks listening are going to get a lot out of this. And hopefully some will be interested in kind of following your path, and we can refer them to you if you're willing to do that. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're welcome.